Welcome to the Divine Mess, a sanctuary where the dance of the empowered masculine and the divine feminine unfolds in all its glory. Join us as we delve into the heart of these cosmic energies, exploring their attributes and the profound impact they have on our lives. From the raw power of the masculine to the nurturing embrace of the feminine, we uncover the balance that leads to a life of abundance and joy. Our hosts, Curdy Deva Perriman and Tina Ryan, are your guides on this spiritual journey who blend science with soul to offer practical wisdom for harnessing your divine energy. We celebrate the beauty and imperfection, embracing the chaos of life's journey as a catalyst for growth. The Divine Mess isn't just a podcast, it's a movement towards wholeness and self-expression. So come laugh with us, cry with us, and grow with us. Every episode is an invitation to explore the depths of your being and to live out loud, authentically and unapologetically. Subscribe and join our community of seekers as we support each other in this extraordinary, messy adventure we call life. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the latest episode of The Divine Mess. Wherever you're joining us, thank you for being part of our world today. And if this is the first time that you have landed in our pool of divine mess, my name's Tina Marie and I am a self-love coach, and I deal with women in the second seasons of their life once they've moved through separation and divorce. And as always, I am joined by my Mauritian French-speaking triathlon training friend from about 8 hours away, the delightful Mr. Curdy David Perriman, who is the cosmic alchemist from the Golden Temple. And it's always such a pleasure to catch up and have a conversation. And this morning we have a guest on our virtual couch, which is so lovely. And our beautiful guest this morning, her name is Jacqueline Goodwin, and she is an ordained pastor and a prophetess, and she focuses on the deliverance and healing of our beautiful young people who sometimes need the most help in navigating their own divine mess, right? She's a youth director and mentor and Sunday school teacher since 2002. And her diverse career includes roles such as a paralegal, an educator, and a substance abuse counsellor. She holds multiple advanced degrees in theology, counselling, and English, and she is the author of Healing in the Vessel and From Bitter to Better. Going to have some interesting conversations on that one. And she's also co-authored quite a few books, a little bit like my co-host and myself. She's an international speaker, an Amazon bestseller, and has been featured in various magazines. She's living in a warmer part of the world, South Carolina, than my friend and I at the moment. And she's a little bit crazy like us and loves to run and meditate and working with her community and spending time with her beautiful family. So now that we've got the introductions out of the way, welcome, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you guys for having me on y'all platform. I'm so excited to be conversating with you guys.
Well, I suppose a good first question is, tell us a little bit about your story and how you go about navigating your own divine mess.
Yes. Well, a little bit about my story. As you heard earlier about, I'm a pastor, and how all that came about was through a divine miraculous healing, which helped me divine through my mess. Some years back, I got diagnosed with HIV. So while I was on this journey, I was a substitute, a substance counselor at a program for youth. And during that time, I had not stepped into the ministry fully. I would say I was in ministry, but I wasn't walking as a pastor. I wasn't operating as a pastor. But I met one of my mutual friends there, a good friend of mine, and she was going through an ordeal where the Holy Spirit had revealed to me that she had been diagnosed with HIV. And the drive to my job was about 45 minutes. So on the way driving home one night after working, Holy Spirit just revealed to me to talk with her and to minister with her and pray with her. So in my obedience, I did as such. And not knowing that it was a setup for me. You know, sometimes we open the door or we walk through a door and we're helping somebody else, not knowing that it's preparing us for the next chapter in our lives. So that's sort of what happened to me ministering to her and pouring into her and praying with her and celebrating with her because she came back, and before I lost everything in a fire, she gave me these praying hands, and she was telling me that she just thank God for bringing me and her together for such a time as that. But God miraculously healed her from HIV, and I was celebrating with her because I was happy, you know. And in that, at first I was kind of reluctant to go up and pray with her about it because I was like, well, during this time, HIV was just coming out, and a lot of people wasn't talking about it. And I'm the type of person, I just don't like just walking up to people getting in their business. But when I approached her, before I approached her, I told the Holy Spirit, well, you're gonna have to open up the door. So she came to me and asked me to step outside. She wanted to share something that was very confidential, that she needed prayer about. And I said, sure. And as we went outside, we went to the car, and I told her, I said, well, I don't mind praying with you. You know, however the Holy Spirit lead, I'll pray. And as I began to pray, I was praying for her healing. And maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, she came back to work, and she had this little prayer hand, and she set it on my desk. And she shared her testimony about her results when she went back to get retested, everything, how God had healed her. And I was just so excited for her. And a little bit about myself. Every job that I've gone on, my faith, my Christianity is my foundation for helping me navigate through my divine mess. So every job that I applied for, I always pray, I always see God and say, you know, do you want me to go here? Because I look at this job as an assignment, so not necessarily as income based, because I know my faith, I just believe that God is my source and my jobs are my resources. So when I went there, I knew I had an assignment, but did not know it was going to be this young lady that I met. So meeting her and sharing and celebrating her testimony, not knowing that, I'll say maybe a year later, I was diagnosed with the same thing. So it was like, wow, when you're praying for somebody else and then it lands on your door. So it's like you can give advice and praying for somebody else, but when it comes at your front door, it's like, okay, now the same thing I poured into her, I'm going to have to take that advice. So that is how praying for my own healing and my own miraculous breakthrough. That's how my ministry was birthed, Healing in the Vessel International Ministry. That's how my first book was birthed, Healing in the Vessel, A Mother's Love, A Daughter's Journey of Faith, because my mother was my prayer partner before she passed. We prayed together, we fasted together, but during this time when I was diagnosed, I literally just went to the doctor not knowing that was going to be my diagnosis. I was expecting another result, but when I got that result, I literally just looked at the door, and every time I always look at the door. I always see that cross, and when I saw the cross, to me, it represented, okay, my healing, and I just took that as, okay, God, I don't know what you're about to do, but you're going to do something miraculously in my life. And He showed up in just that way. I fasted and prayed for my own self, just as I prayed for my dear friend. Turned out God came and healed me. One of my things while I was fasting and praying, I told God I want to see my children live. God has blessed me to be a witness to two grandchildren. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter and a grandson that's about to be 3 in about another 3 weeks. So I am so grateful for that. And as I said, it just has birthed the platform of my ministry, has birthed the platform of my first book. It literally became the platform for me becoming an author. I got excited. I'm sorry to give you guys.
Don't be sorry. Please go on. You can keep going on. That's all
Yeah.
good for us. But it's beautiful what you said, like about God is my source and the jobs that I have been into are my resources. I love that, how you rephrase that and how you see that. It's so powerful. And then when you were talking about the diagnosis, you said like God placed it at your door. How was it for you that moment when you received that diagnosis? Because you are a woman of faith, and you said like faith has your Christianity and faith have been your foundation. So when this diagnosis is knocking at your door, how did you take it in that moment?
I remember sitting in the doctor's office, and I was sitting on the edge of the bed, but not the bed, but where they have you sit on the chair in the doctor's office. And when he came in, and literally when he said it to me, is the first thing came to my mind was like, okay, Jesus healed Lazarus from the dead, so this is not too hard for him. You just heal my friend, so you're not going to use me to touch and agree and pray with somebody and not do it for me. And then I was like, well, God, like the Hebrew boys, God, if you still don't do it, I'm still going to serve you. It's not going to change my faith and what I believe, but I'm going to believe that you are going to heal me, because when you read the different stories in the Bible and how the different navigating how their faith, like today I was just reading Hebrews 11 talking about, the faith of evidence of things not seen and the substance of things hoped for, and going back and reading like the different testimonies, the Hebrew boys, the widow, how their faith just carried them through different things. It just reminded me, God, you answer my prayer just like I asked. I asked that I see my children, and I just believe I'm gonna see my children, because the home that I was raised in with my mother and my father, I was raised in a Christian home. But just watching my mother triumph, a woman that had many illness, but yet her foundation was praying and fasting, and she didn't waver in that faith, no matter when she went to the doctor. So when I got that diagnosis, my thing is, okay, God, what are you about to do? What is the purpose behind the HIV? And in the purpose and behind it, he showed me to me that HIV was healing in the vessel, and this is going to be your ministry. So I was like, okay. So then when he showed me, I said, so what is AIDS standing for? And he showed me that AIDS was appearing impossible, but dying to surrender. So then I asked God, what is it that I need to die to? What are the things that I have allowed to hinder me to draw closer to you? And those are the things he began to show me, where I began to get caught up on material things and looking at jobs to be my resources. And that's when he gave me that revelation. Those are just your resources. I'm your source. I now want you to be like the birds. I got a whole different revelation with the birds, how they just fly. They trust their creator. That's where he was taking me. I want you to trust me. No matter where I land you, I want you to trust me.
And of course, we got the word surrender in already, because we have been counting that word, because surrender is a word that's been coming through every single episode that we had. And it's our
What?
66th one. So we were thinking of changing the name to like the divine surrender. And you just said that, like you said, AIDS is appearing impossible, dying to
Dying
surrender.
to surrender.
What do you mean like by dying to surrender? Like, what does that mean?
Like to me, but as he showed it to me, when we have to deny ourselves of some things, like when you're fasting for me is like I fast from food. So my natural body, oh, go get that Pepsi, go eat at McDonald's or Zaxby. But no, I'm not going to do that. So I'm dying to surrender, because this is the time that if I would be watching TV or if I would be eating, I'm going to be reading my Bible. I'm going to be praying. I'm going to be studying the word and seeking his face, asking God, what is it that you want me to do? So that is what dying is, surrender to do, and dying to the things, because there are some relationships that we have ourselves tied to, toxic relationships that have no purpose to our destiny, but because they may be families, they may be long time friendship, we're holding on to them, trying to take them to a place that they have not been created to go. So I had to surrender to those things in order for my ministry to be birthed, in order for the author that God created me to be when I was 3. I've been not 3, But when I was in third grade, I mean, writing, those things, I had to die to those things. I had to release stuff.
You want to go on? I just want to ask about surrender because I'm so curious. Like, what's your? I come from a science background, so I always ask people about definition, and Tina doesn't like it. It's like my masculine side speaking. So I'm just like curious for you, and Beef. I'm really honored. I can say we are really honored to have you because you show and make us feel that unwavering faith in God, no matter what's happening around you, no matter what's given to you, no matter what's knocking at your door, you give that sense and you're someone we can feel that walk the talk. It's not like you just being on the podcast. So we are really honored to have you here. But I would like to go
Thank you.
back to that word surrender for you now throughout your journey. What does it mean to you now, like to surrender? If you had to explain it to someone, what would you tell that person? What does surrender means?
I would tell that person, letting go everything that is attached that I find valuable, because surrendering to me is the very thing, giving up the very thing that is close to me, to say, God, thank you, Holy Ghost. When I think of surrender, Abraham, God had asked him to give up his son Isaac. That's his child. That's his son. He couldn't have a child. Well, Sarah didn't have the baby until 100 years. She was 100 years old. So they waited all these years, 25 years, they have this baby. We have this baby. Then you turn around and tell me to bring him to you and kill him as a sacrifice. But Abraham was willing to do it because he trusts God enough that if I kill my son Isaac, you are powerful enough to raise Isaac from the dead. That is surrender to me, to give up something that is that valuable to me, to know that God, that you'll return it to me. And if you don't, I'll still serve you. If you do, you got something better that you want me to walk into. So giving up everything, releasing it, not holding on to things that I have attached myself to, that would be a hindrance or that would become a blind sight for me seeing the true purpose that God has called me to. Just a true essence of yielding. That's it. That's the word I would, yielding.
Why do I feel like I've just been schooled for the last 20 minutes? As most of our listeners would know, that patience and trust and surrender are my 3 lifelong lessons. And David consistently sends me things about surrender, but the whole God, universe, whatever flavor you want to put on it, that is my source, and my jobs are simply the resource in which he provides. I think it's a really nice reframe as to how to look at how you move through the world, in terms of, because us humans, we can't not be concerned about the financials of life, and how do we put food on the table, and how do we put a roof over our heads, and I need to see it before I believe it concept, whereas we need to be in a space where we believe it before we see it, because then we become the vibrational match to the things that we desire. Because if we sit in that space of lack and scarcity, we will never be a match. Whereas I think, you're in a space where you got a diagnosis and you could have gone down a rabbit hole and had a woe is me moment, and why is this happening to me, and this is all unfair and unjust. And I think a lot of people do when they get a big scary medical diagnosis, or they lose a relationship, or they go through a divorce, or they lose a child, or all of those sorts of things. It's the why is this happening to me? instead of what am I supposed to get from it?
Mhm.
You know, it's such a massive reframe when you sat there and went, why am I going through this? You know, what is the divine purpose of what I'm moving through? So I've had an interesting reframe on my life in the last 20 minutes. So thank you and bless you for that. But the book, Bitter to Better, can you explain a little bit more about the book and the premise of it?
Yes. Well, from better to better, um, I had went through a divorce, and it wasn't a pleasant divorce. I was praying that it was, but he just was not, and it was very painful. He did some painful things. Which I'm a very transparent person, because what I went through may help one of the listeners. But he would pay child support. So I was trying not to go through the court system. So I ended up going through the court system, but he was still not paying, getting arrears and behind. So that was truly, again, once God was showing me, I'm still I'm still your source. Your ex-husband is just your resource. So I was getting that lesson. I was getting a patient lesson. But it was one Sunday I was ministering. I came back, and I was laying across my bed, and God told me, he said that I was going to go to Africa to minister. So he gave me this book title. He said, From Better to Better, work on it before you go. So I didn't do it. I was being disobedient. I kept putting it out. So he allowed me to go to Africa and minister, and I got back. And I was in a car accident. I could not get out of the bed. So I said, okay, God, you got my attention. I have no choice but to now focus on this book. So everything that I write, I preach, I teach, my first question, God, what are you teaching me before I pour into the people? What is it that you're saying to me? So when I asked him that, he said to me, yes, you're praying, you're prophesying, you're teaching people, but there's still some bitterness in you. And I was like, oh my God, from what? And he said, from relationship, from your divorce, from previous relationship. And I said, well, I thought that I was healed. I thought I was delivered. He said, and sometimes there's something called residue. And when I looked up the residue, the aftermath, the form that we still don't see, we think it's all cleaned up, but it's, take your finger, you can still see dirt. And that's what he showed me. It was still residue on my furniture. I was the furniture. It was still residue. He said, so now I'm going to give you that shiny power where I shine everything off. And that was from bitter to better. He began to give me step by steps, strategies, praise. He gave me this method that I call the rap. And I brought a copy of this book. And the rap is, first we do the reflection. You read the chapter, then you reflect. And with the reflection, he gave me questions to ask. And then the act. So I'll give you an activity. Do you act on it? You're just not going to reflect, but we're going to take action, because in any part of transformation, there must be acting. We got to actively transform. And then the prayer, I closed with a prayer. So that was the wrap. But he began to break down to me the different steps, what I had to do to get through this healing process. And by the time I had did the rough draft of my manuscript, I was healed from my divorce. I was healed from the relationship after my divorce. And I began to see things in a different perspective. I was able to pray for my ex. When there was a point in my life I didn't want to pray for him. I was able to pray for the guy I was dating after my ex, that relationship ended up good. But I was able to pray for him and intercede for him. But I had to realize for myself that I was still in a bitter state. And sometimes relationships, you mentioned earlier, you're a coach for women that are going through divorces and changes in life. We go through those things. The loss of a loved one, that can cause bitterness. Rape can cause bitterness. Injustice can cause bitterness. But I realized one thing: when we don't untangle those emotions and and how we feel in those hurt and painful situations, those memories are memories to keep us captive in a prison. And you don't have to physically be in a prison to be in a prison. You don't have to be physically in the bars. And there are many of us that are out in freedom, but yet we are prison. So he was showing me, I'm giving you the keys to set you free. And that is how this book, From Bitter to Better, came.
It's interesting. I've been listening to Brené Brown recently, Rising Strong, and I had a little. Well, I wouldn't say a little. I'd say I'd had a lot of dawning realizations. A bit like that residue, that dirt was still left hanging around. So I went back to my ex-husband and I wrote him a letter and sort of said, look, I appreciate that I was unhealed, you were unhealed, we were two people coming together, and it kind of caused a little bit of a shitstorm. We created some beauty, but at the same time we created an unholy mess as well.
Right.
But at the same time I said, thank you for being, the biggest teacher of my life, and about the things that are not healthy for me and that aren't good for me, and the things that I need in my life to feel whole and balanced. I wasn't expecting a response, but I got a response, and it was the response I expected him to write, because, bless him, being 55 years old, he's too scared to look, and I didn't want in our marriage, I didn't want to be scared to look, but he just was, like when you're trying to lead a dog in one way and it doesn't want to go that way, that was exactly how it felt. So, and now I'm at that stage a little bit like you, where you pray for love and for happiness and for them to find their own sense of balance in their own mess, because it's just like, I do not wish ill will on you at all. I've only ever wanted for someone to be happy and fulfilled and feel good about their life, like,
that's
depending on how you feel about it. This is your one shot, kid, do it and do it well.
Yes, I like that.
And be happy, like, we did not get put on this earth to be miserable and unhappy. I think it's that duality of looking at experiences and the meaning that we associate with the experiences as to which side of the fence that you want to constantly sit on, that it's always going to be bad, or that, this is always going to happen to me. Sometimes you need a fresh set of glasses or a fresh perspective. And I think that's where people like yourself and Dava and myself, we offer the flip side of going, well, have you thought about it this way? And have you tried to put yourself in that person's shoes? And do you think that maybe they're responding from guilt and shame versus, what it comes across as righteousness, like that I know I'm right and I know you're wrong, it's just, it's not a healthy place for them to be in, but it's also not your role to help them get out of that quagmire. It's actually their own responsibility, and that in itself takes a massive bit of learning, that the only person you can be responsible for is yourself, even when you're a parent, and even when you want to assist your kids so that the ups and downs aren't so hellish. Someone had said to me once, you can't muck your kids up, teen. This is their journey. This is their roller coaster ride. You might want to put stops in along the way, but you're only preventing their learning. They came through you so that they could meander their own journey. You can't prevent the hurts and upsets, which are essential for their growth. And I think once someone had said that to me, it was just like, oh, I can relax now.
But that is so true. That is so profound because it's just like if there's no rain, there's no growth. There's the earth won't grow. So the rain, I associate the rain with pain because you can't have all good because then there'll be no growth there. You be complacent. If there's no pain, we become complacent. So the pain causes us to grow, to uproot things and get out of different places. Otherwise, we would stay. Because had I not gone through the hurt with my ex-husband, I would not have been an author. I would not have been here today on you guys' awesome platform talking to you. So I thank you because all that you put me through was a growth for me to let me see this is my journey that I have to take, that I have to go through. So it's like you said, and we can't keep our children. My oldest daughter drives me crazy. I see the young me in her, and I was like, I did that. I'm trying to help you. But she's the one that she's got to go. She's got to get on that roller coaster and go up and down. But my baby girl, she'll take my advice. It's like, okay, mom, well, I can avoid that. My son, the middle child, he's in between. He'll take my advice sometimes, and sometimes he's like his older sister. So that is so true what your friend said. We can't lock them up and keep them because if they don't go through pain, they will never grow. And we don't want them to be stagnated in life.
I love how you compare rain to the pain. Like even if you see the rain is like kind of washing away as well what's not needed, like taking away,
Yes.
releasing. It's a way of surrender as well, because often when a storm comes, we see the damage or the devastation it goes on the outside, but it's actually clearing the path for something better, to make way for something better, just like you surrender to the divine for you. I love how
Yes.
you surrender to the divine. But you were telling in your story when you were saying like before going to Africa, you didn't listen to God, right? You were like that naughty girl, quote unquote, not listen to God.
Yes.
So,
I
so
just
how
was
can
not.
no, I was just wondering, like for us, like if we happen so often not listening to God because we keep having those conversations, me and Tina, like, how can we listen to God constantly and not be like you, like you said, like being naughty, but we're on the naughty list anyway, so it doesn't matter.
For me, my kids laugh at me because I was like, he always whipped me. He was telling me to work on this book. He was like speaking through my friends. He was showing me in dreams, and I just wouldn't do it. But when I had the car accident, it cut out the car. I was knocked unconscious, and during the time I was unconscious, I saw my mother and my best friend, and I was like, "Oh, I'm floating." I was like, "Okay." I was ready to just leave this earth, and they both was like, "No, it's not your time." So when I came back through, all I heard was them cutting the car, and I was like, "Don't cut the door," because I was kind of still discombobulated. I was like, "Don't cut my daughter's car door because she got to drive it." It was like, "Ma'am, you can't get out the car if you don't cut the door off." But during the time I was in the hospital because my lungs got punctured, so I'm laying in the hospital and it's COVID. I was like, I don't want to stay here because I don't want to get COVID. And it was like, well, you can't go home. So I'm laying in the hospital and I'm saying, okay, God, what is it, Holy Spirit? You got me. What is it? Just as clear. You have an assignment from bitter to better. So for me, it's like he puts me in positions where he redirects me. That's it. Like we redirect our kids. Go back and do this. So he redirected me back to what he told me to do. So I think first when we were being disobedient, he brings us back the full circle to that same thing. You got to do this. And I was like, I had to go back. I didn't write a letter to my ex-husband, but my baby girl, she's getting married. So some years back, before now, she's getting married. But some years back, I used to have to take them to go meet their dad when they were much younger. And I went to meet him, and he was talking about us getting back together. And the Holy Spirit could tell me, no, that's not. I was disobedient then. I wasn't supposed to marry him. but I was disobedient back then. I can be transparent. I was materialistic. I love money. So loving money got me a husband that was not good for me. Not so. But doing that, I learned the lessons of being patient and waiting on God's time, is waiting on the mate that God has for me. As I learned much more about fasting and praying for my mom during this time. It was a point in my life when my ex wasn't giving me money and I would feel overwhelmed. I took an overdose of medicine, and my mother, that was a prayer warrior, was praying. She said the Holy Spirit revealed to her, you need to pray for your daughter now. So she got out of the car and began to pray for me. As she began to pray for me, I began to throw up every bit of pill. I took 24 Benadryl pills and I threw them all up. And that's when the Holy Spirit said, I have need of you. There's work for you to do. And my mama was on the way to my house, but by the time she got there, she told me, she was like, what were you doing at 3 o'clock? And I said, I had taken 24 Benadryl pills, and by 3:15 I was thrown up. She said, that's why I was praying for you. So I knew through the different things I've been through that there is something that God has for me to do, and I'm doing it now. So I am like, now I try not to be disobedient. I try to go ahead and do it because I don't like getting spanked. I don't want to have to be laying on my back, so to speak, to get my attention. So I really think it's that sense of him always redirecting us, whether it's sending a friend to talk to you, whether it's sickness to come where you have to rest your body and you have to sit there and be like, okay, let me take my mind off of this. Or whether it's like I like walking and meditating. When I'm walking, that's where I'm hearing him speak to me even the more so. Do this, do that. So
Really, God love having you on the naughty list. It's beautiful, like how like you're open and vulnerable about it. I know we are joking about the naughty list and being good about it, but we all know, like deep within, we are all good. Like we are all pure love and light. And you were sharing that bit where you saw your mom and your best friend during the accident. So was it like in light form that you were seeing them, or how was it? You said like you were
like,
floating.
I was like, but they look like little. I told my kids when I came in, they look like little glowing angels. It was just like a bright light around them. And I was like, oh my gosh. I literally thought, I was like, oh, I've died. I'm going with my mom and my best friend. But then they were saying to me, like they was pushing their hand, like pushing me back, like no. And I was like, why? So I was like, I just, because my mom, when I say me and my mom, and I'm going to try not to cry, but me and my mom was close. Literally, she was my best friend. She was my mother, but she was also my best friend. Like, there are times I didn't have, she knew when I was going through, when I was married with my ex and we were going through, she would just intercede. She knew he held a gun at my head. He was going to shoot me in my temple. And my mom said she woke up and the Holy Spirit told her to intercede. And the Holy Spirit had woke me up and I could feel the gun press up against my head. He said, don't open your eyes, just pray, because the enemy wants him to blow your brains out. Begin to pray. And I felt him release, moving the gun away from me. And then the Holy Spirit said, open up your eyes and let him know that I have protection around you. And I told him, I said, what you meant for my bad, God has protected me. But those are some of the things I went through and I talk about in my the first book I wrote, Healing the Vessel, Mother Love, a Daughter's Journey of Faith, that, sometimes we stay in relationships for the sake of the children, but it's not healthy for us. And that's one valuable lesson I learned, that I was staying for my children, but what good was I to them where I was constantly stressed and not hearing God clearly like I should and what I should do. And sometimes we want to get advice from people, but sometimes we have to find that divine place where we just pray and find the answer through God for ourselves, because Your journey is not my journey. And like I told one of my friends, this young lady, I met, she was going through her marriage, and she came back, well, should I leave my husband? I simply told her, did you pray about it? But because I went through a divorce, that does not mean that's your journey. And now they have been celebrating 30 years of marriage because they had to work through some things. So the journeys are different. So I say to people, know what your journey is. What is your path? But you can get a nugget from my journey to help you, as I can get a nugget from your journey to help me.
Sounds like you're talking the same language that we do normally, because we excuse me, we look for the practicality in the spiritual journey, or how people can apply practical steps, the 1% atomic habits that you can add into your day that elevate you, to make you realize that where you are is not permanent, that you have the capacity to change and to move if you really desire to do so. We can all walk around and say that you wish for something to be different, but if you're not showing that you're making the strategic moves to be better, instead of a bitter and twisted old lady, you need to show that you're doing something to nourish yourself, to nourish your soul, to nourish your body, to nourish the relationships that you have. And then you start to become a better match for the things that you desire. But you can't sit on the couch and eat chips and excuse me, drink soda and expect to have the body of a supermodel. It just doesn't work that way, right? Excuse me. So we need to do more in order to get more.
We do.
I think it's about being more as well, like being more yourself. Not just it's not just in the doing, it's like being like you. For example, Jacqueline, like you really embody that women of faith, like unwavering faith. And I know in our first conversation you spoke about how your mom built that in you, right? And today, when you're sharing the story, like how you have this you had this like relationship, really close relationship with your mom, like how can you like share a bit about your journey? Because I know like your book, Mother and Love, Daughter Love, right? That's
It's
the
a hidden investor, a mother's love, and a daughter's
oh,
journey of
sorry,
faith.
yes. Can you talk about that journey as well, like how it has evolved for you between your mom and, because I know like to our listeners, like there would be um like mothers or daughters as well listening. So maybe like you said, one nugget can help them to heal their relationship as well.
Yes. I remember like being about the age of 3, and I would just see my mom get up, and around like 3 o'clock, and I was like, where's my mom up this time? But she would get up, getting on her knees, praying. And got in school, got in kindergarten, we used to always like, well, write who you want to be like. And they were so surprised because I wanted to be like my mother. I didn't want to be like any superstar. And the reason why I chose my mom is because of the life she lived. She wasn't a woman that, as we say, live this way on Sundays and then live like a hellion during the week. How she lived in her home is how you would see her in Walmart, how you would see her in church, no matter where you say on my mom. And I wanted that. Her life of praying and fasting really was the foundation that helped me to maneuver through my diagnosis of HIV. It was just her unwavering faith not to be defeated, because I watched how she prayed and fasted, and no matter what she went through, she had problems with her kidneys. She had high blood pressure, she had diabetes. when she would go on dialysis, she would still be encouraging others and praying for others and always having a smile on her face in spite of what she would be going through when she would be in pain, sometimes coming from dialysis. And I remember our last conversation when she was telling me that, Jackie, you're going to be okay. You just continue to do what God tells you to do. Trust Him no matter what. And from those words always resonate with me. You know, there are some of us that may be listening that we don't have a good relationship with our biological mother. But there may be somebody that God has placed in your life that's like a mother figure that doesn't have to biologically birth you, but can speak into your life. And when I say speak into your life, I mean encourage you. We need to be around women that have the same mindset and try to give us that push, you know, that empowerment and equipping us to want to do better, you know. And that's what my mom did. She didn't let, even when I was going through my divorce, she didn't let me sit there and be depressed. Woe me, what am I gonna do? I had 3 little children, you know. We're gonna work on this. Me and your dad are here for you, but you're not gonna sit here. I worked at that time. I think I was a paralegal at the time I was divorced, and then I became a drug court counselor. But my mom always pushed me. She encouraged me to go back to school. But one thing I loved about my mom that I gathered a nugget I got from her is being transparent. I'm gonna share 2 nuggets. Being transparent. Be real with yourself. Be true to yourself. Because if you're not true with yourself, you are not going to be a productive person. You know, the other thing she taught me is don't compare myself to other women. And for men, don't compare yourself to other men. Don't compare yourself to other people. I don't care if you're in the same professional field or you're in the same place in ministry. Stop comparing yourself because everybody's journey is different. Their walk of life is different. And those 2 things she told me that I really grasped onto along with fasting, with praying. You know, Jackie, stay focused. Your mind focused on the eternal. Keep your goals and stay focused on that. Because if I'm looking over to the right is what Jane is doing, and over here, what Susie is doing is to get distracted and miss what God has right in front of me. What has He given me to do? So I say to them, and relationships can be repaired. Sometimes it's just our pride. And I know there are some things that some of you all may have gone through that you just seem like, I just cannot forgive my mother. But I say to you, don't wait till that person, your mom has passed or your father has passed, and you are sitting back at the grave or you didn't go to the funeral and you're sitting home and saying, because one of my friends just said that there were some things he should have said to his mother and he didn't. And I said, it's too late. So, and repair the relationship. One thing I told my daughter, she was sharing with me, one of her friends said, her mom is toxic for her. I told her, I said, well, tell her to repair the relationship, but you don't have to stay in the toxic relationship. Mom, I love you, but I can't be in that toxic relationship with you. And when you work on getting better and not want to be toxic, then we can be around each other. But don't leave your bed undone, so to speak. My grandma used to tell me, make up your bed. So don't leave your bed undone. Talk to your friends, your parents, whoever that relationship is broken. Repair it. And even if it's toxic, you don't have to stay around it. But get it repaired. You know, build that bridge. Let them get to the place. And some relationships have seasons. You know, we got to know the season of people. I know our parents are supposed to be in our life a long time, but there are some parents that just don't want to move. But at least try to repair it and know you've done your part in that relationship.
I feel that Tina is saying she's getting Sunday school today. by the time of the recording. But it feels like Gabrielle Bernstein said this as well. She is like the universe has your back author. She says like always take care of the side of your street. Take care of the side of your street. So which means like take care of you as well, and not just focus
Yeah,
on the people. I love how you said like I love you, mom, but this is not working out, like I'm just know that I'm present. I'm going to be here, but you can work on yourself on your own. You don't need me to be there. I love how you put that in word. Like that's just beautiful how you we can repair relationship in that way. But I'm just curious because you have been mentioning that word throughout is like prayer. So I come from a Hindu background, and in
okay.
Hinduism we do have the prayer, and we call that mantras. You can say like affirmation. So I'm just curious
Okay.
for you, like for you, what does prayer entail? Like how do you pray? If you can share that.
Yes. Well, prayer for intel to me is a conversation. I call God my daddy. I was like, okay, daddy, this is what this is how, I'm just transparent. This is how I pray. I don't come with no fancy elaborate words. I was like, this is your daughter, daddy. This is what I'm going through. When I was going through my divorce and it just seemed like my ex was living his best life, I was literally crying, daddy, why is it looking like he's having the best life and I'm just going through? You got to do something. But that's how I go to him. Conversation. Daddy, this, all right, daddy, they messing with me on the job. I'm going to let you handle it. I don't want to go back. Became a relationship with you, and I used to be fighting with my hands and not with my prayer. So, Daddy, you take care of them. And that is how I pray. It's just conversation. This is your daughter. You made me. You mold me. You delivered me from some things. You know. You better handle that for me, Daddy. Work it out. And then I also say the Our Father's prayer. Um, the Christian Bible, King James Bible that we use that Jesus taught. I also say that prayer. That's a part of my prayer life. But I also pray for things that I need. I just lay it on the line like I'm talking to you. I just talk to him as my father. You're my spiritual daddy. This is what I need. When I lost everything to fire, and I remember I was on Facebook Live and I was asking people to pray for me. But when I got off of Facebook Live, and I was still watching my apartment go up in the flames. And I looked up to heaven, and I remember the janitor. He's a minister too, and I was standing up looking, and I told him, I said, I don't know what my dad is doing. I said, the only thing I have is my pocketbook, my cell phone, my dog, the clothes on my back, and the shoes on my feet. And I looked up towards heaven. I said, but Daddy, I trust you. I was crying, but Daddy, I trust you. I walked out here with just my life, but Daddy, I trust you. And that's how I pray.
It's like the book Conversation with God. It's like you're having a
Yes,
conversation with God, and that's how it is. Simple, really simple. And that's where
yes,
you build your faith. I love how you do that. Like it sounds so easy, and I feel like anyone can do it, and that's the beauty of it. We can all talk to the universe or God or however we want. Because I was
yes.
curious to that because I always told my mom, and I always joke with my mom, because when we went to the temple, it felt like the way she was kneeling down, it's like she was begging to God, and I always tease her about that. I say, stop begging to God, like just say thank you. I always tease her. That's my relationship with her, being cheeky with her.
Oh,
And I always told her like just have a conversation, like because I was curious like how you do that for every single religion, because I come from a country where it's multi-racial and we have so many religion in there
okay.
that we learn from each other how do they pray. And I was always curious to know how each person do that, because we all have our unique way, like you call Daddy. I love it.
Yes,
It's not like God or the universe. It's like Daddy is here. You take care of this,
that's
and I love that.
that is how, and he shows up every time. I've
Mhm.
had people come to take my furniture, and he didn't allow them to take my furniture. Allowed my ex that was trying not to pay it to come take it. And God used him because he had to go back to court. So he paid it, thought he was going to get brownie points with the judge, but he paid off my furniture. And then when my car was supposed to be repossessed, God gave me favor with the guy that came to repossess my car to call him and talk to me. He took all this different price off. So I just talked to him, and that is just, I'm just like down to earth.
I think for most people, it's the asking. It's like getting on a bus and knowing that the bus driver is going to take you where you want to go. You know, you have that blind faith when you get in a cab or you get on the bus or you sit on the train or you jump in an aeroplane that you're going to get to the destination that you need to get to. And I think so many of us struggle with asking and letting it go. You know, can you help me with my furniture? Can you help me with my car? Can you help me with these things that I need help with? But being comfortable enough to get on the bus, so to speak, and just go for the ride and see where it takes you, instead of being that human wanting to navigate it and steer it and be in the driver's seat. We need to possibly find more comfort sitting in the passenger seat
Yes.
and allowing somebody else to drive whilst showing that we are putting steps in place in order to help ourselves. I think that's the biggest thing. I think we need to put steps in place, but have faith that the steps we're taking are going to lead us in the right direction. I don't think it's a one and done necessarily, where you just throw it out and then sit back and wait for it to turn up in a Tiffany's box on your front doorstep. I don't think it kind of works like that, right? I think there needs to be some strategic action in order for them to see that you're willing and able to be in receivership of what's coming. Laziness gets nobody nowhere, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, we have to be mindful of the steps that we're taking. And it's been such an absolute pleasure to have you back. You know, we had such a fabulous conversation the first time around, and this has been nothing short of enlightening this morning. I think is probably a good, and my co-host is laughing at me because he knows exactly what has happened for me this morning, and I'm quite sure the same has happened for him. I'm sure he's gotten some gentle nudges this morning as to things that he needs to tidy up on his side of the street. So we thank you so very much for being vulnerable and for sharing your story and for making us all realise that there's more to it. And that if we just have a little bit of faith and we put a little bit of trust in things that we can't see, then what we need and will come to us, because we're here to serve a purpose. And those things that we need will help us in order to serve our purpose. So it's been great, Jacqueline. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I've enjoyed it.
Oh, we are so blessed to have you. Thank you so much for coming. You know, like Jacqueline, in your story, like you have every challenge to go the other way, yet you said, Daddy, I trust you. I know you got my back. And that's how you took on life. And that's what you reminded us today, both of us. And I'm sure the listeners, when they will be listening, that at any point in their life, that will remind them that you got to trust Daddy, like you put it. And you got to trust like the universe or God, however they believe it. Any last message that you have for our listeners that's coming through you or you want to share, please
Yeah.
go for it.
Yes. The last thing I did was want to share with you guys, and it just kept coming back to me. Whenever you feel like you want to have that control, remember the birds, right? Any type of bird, because every bird flies away. You can go to and it's so funny. God reminded me of this. Where I live now was a bird nest. So me and my son went out there the other day, and the birds and the little babies had left. And God reminded me some years ago when He had told me, and I think I mentioned it early, how the birds they leave their home and they just fly away all over the world, not to just other states, but other countries. But when they get there, they trust that their creator is going to have everything that they need provided for them there. So I leave you guys with that nugget tonight. Everything that God, your creator, whatever you believe, God has already got it for you. It's already been provided. So when you see a bird, you imagine that. Take away that you have a bird-like faith tonight.
Thank you so very much. And on that beautiful, beautiful note, considering I have birds tattooed on my body, it's a good reminder for me. We love you. Thank you so very much for joining us on our latest episode. And we look forward to having you join us again next week on the virtual couch. But until then, take very good care of yourselves and ask for help divinely or from another human that's near you, because it's important to be part of your own community. So until then, take care, and I'll hand it over to my gorgeous friend who'll say his own goodbyes.
I don't know how I can follow that, but thank you again, Jacqueline, for being here today. I know it's late at your place. We really appreciate to have you. And it's been a blessing with your wisdom. You are most welcome back anytime if you want. If you have an event coming up, or if you have another book, I'm pretty sure there will be a few others coming up. Please let us know, and you're most welcome to come back. We'll have you in a heartbeat. Don't worry.
Thank you. I'm so excited. You guys have is it daytime? You have a blessed day. It's night over here. And I've enjoyed being on your platform. I'm quite sure we will be staying connected.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Jacqueline.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll see you next week.